Is now a great honor to welcome back to the platform Louise Dunn. Louise Dunn is the founder of Heartland Miracles. She's the author of The Way of Forgiveness certification program. She's the Dean of Forgiveness Studies in the Center and Spiritual Director to the faculty. She brings to this work a deep passion for A Course in Miracles, with more than 25 years of presenting miracles-based classes, retreats, and special events. Louise is also an ordained minister, certified life coach, speaker, and author, and it is our pleasure to welcome you here today, Louise. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go within. As we prepare ourselves for meditation this morning, we softly close our eyes, if that feels okay. And then we just gentle down into our body, aware of the breath. Breathe as if you are safe. Breathe as if you are a brand new being. There is no past of any kind that is chasing you, or haunting you, or holding you back. And as you breathe, say in your mind, I am new. I am a new me. Breathe as if there is no future pulling you. And be here now. Now. In the quiet, the freedom, the spaciousness, the holiness of the present moment. The now moment is a clean, untarnished birth. And you are safe. You are perfectly supported in this moment, by this moment, for this very moment. And if any thoughts of past or future want to intrude on the peacefulness of now, simply say to them, I let this go. I am here. Breathe as if there is no danger, no stress, nothing but the loving, caring stillness of the present. There is nothing to do, but breathe and receive. Bring all your cares or concerns or challenges, all your worries into this moment, and allow There is nothing to fix, nothing to change, nothing to prove. You are complete and completely loved. Say quietly in your mind, I am complete and completely loved. As you breathe your wholeness and your completeness, feel a warm glow within the heart chakra. And with each breath, imagine that glow is expanding to include your whole wonderful body. Every cell blessed. Every system blessed. Every function blessed. Breathe in the blessing. And let this warm glow expand to all the space around you. Breathe into that pulsing, radiant light that comes from deep within you and surrounds you above and below and all around, all at once and forever. This is the pure light of your own holiness. Your holiness cannot be tarnished or destroyed. Be in the warm glow of this light, the light of your divine, eternal essence. Be here, now. Breathe. Become so still that you know God is breathing you. There is no past. Breathe. There is no future. Breathe. And then just for a moment, sit in the stillness. morning again, beloved of God. Isn't it a beautiful morning? And I want you to know I came all the way from Indianapolis and I didn't see one flying pig. And I was looking. I want to thank you, dear ones, for the honor and joy of being here with you today at New Thought Unity. What a beautiful center you have. This is a rare, graceful lady, this building. Wow. I was searching through your website, awesome website, by the way, this week, and I saw that this center has an amazing, rich history going back to the 1800s. Do you know how rare that is also? And in that history, I saw this quote: "If you believe God's power, prove it." Made me sit up differently. If you believe God's power, prove it. And then it said, if you teach health, harmony, and prosperity, furnish the actual proof. Has that been happening? Ooh. So today I would like to share with you then the secret of happiness, as I understand it. And then give you a way to prove it to yourself. Would that be okay? Good. Does anybody want to know the secret of happiness? Those two and that man there. Anybody? Thank you. Yes. Try this. Try this. It'll just help. Yes. 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 How did that feel? Good. Try it again. Yes. Whoa, that felt even better. One more time. Yes. Whoa. I believe you. So the secret of happiness, in my understanding, is one simple sentence. You don't even have to write it down because I guarantee you're going to remember. And this is it. There is only love for us here. Everything else is a story we're telling ourselves. There's only love for us here in creation. Everything else is a story. Wow. Wow. Actually, now that I think of it, I could just sit down for 20 minutes and let you think about that. I was raised with 5 brothers. I do a lot of kidding. Well, then let's look at it. What's the story you tell yourself about yourself that keeps you, I don't know, angry, depressed, regretful, shamed, blaming, guilty, or in some other way out of alignment with the happiness and the peace that is ours by divine inheritance? What's the story that you're telling? Because we know today that our perception is holographic. That just blew my mind when somebody told me that. I don't even understand holograms. And I'm supposed to believe that my perception is holographic, and this, in my understanding, my non-scientific understanding, it means that what we believe in one part of our mind, guess what? It's in all parts of our mind, and that's what we're manifesting. That's right. So, how does this compute? It means that how I see myself is how I see everybody else. And how I judge everybody else is how I judge me. Scary. What's the story that you've been telling yourself about your center? I've been going around talking to people this morning and looking everywhere and wondering, what's the story here? What's the story that on a morning like this, in a beautiful facility like this place isn't full? What's the story you're telling? What's the story that you tell yourself about your spouse? I'm going to tell you some stories about my spouse. And I brought him. I don't try to hide those stories anymore. But what's the story you tell about your spouse or your partner, your honey? What's the story you're telling yourself about your boss, your coworkers, your neighbors, that other political party? We are telling stories all day long. We're telling stories about ourselves and other people all day long. In fact, we see ourselves through the lens of our stories. If you tell yourself the story, you are the perfect child of God, and then 5 minutes later, you're angry at the world, what happened in between? Yes, I know a very, very beautiful spiritual word for it. It's 4 letters. Ready? Oops. What happened between affirming that we are the perfect creation of a perfect creator and being angry at someone or ourselves or the world is just an oops. We just forget, right? We just forget. What we know today from quantum theory and from A Course in Miracles, by the way, is a really amazing and beautiful and liberating thing, and it's this. We can change our story at any time, and we will have an entirely different experience. Don't you love that? Oops, I think I'll change my story. How often have we heard that in New Thought? That what we expect is what we will see. Right? I remember one time counseling a beautiful little couple that was getting ready to tie the knot. They were getting ready for their wedding. And she came to me privately and she said, you know, this thing irritates me about him. Having been there, having one of those spouses, and he's perfectly innocent, mind you. My spouse is completely innocent, but he had something about him that irritated me. She did too. And I said, well, tell me more. Well, then there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this. And I said, well, how long have you been looking for those? Right? What's the story you've been telling yourself about your fiance? What if you went home today and you said, you know what? I am going to look only for the good, the positive, and the holy. Holy moly! Do you know what happens? When you look for the good, the positive, and the holy, guess what you find? The good, the positive, and the holy. We can change our story. Okay, so let's get honest. If there's only love for us here, how come all that other stuff is happening? Well, quite honestly, it's because of our stories. Repeated, generation after generation for centuries, and then finally what they have discovered is that survival struggle is encoded in our DNA. Yet I am absolutely certain, beloved of God, that you have been taught, as I have been taught hundreds of times, at this very center you've been taught, that we are not subject to the limitations of generational patterns, correct? Right. We're bigger than that together. We're bigger than that. Oh, I insist on participation. Again, we're bigger than that. Yes, we are, because we are a divine creation with unlimited possibilities. When was the last time that you proved that to yourself? That you are an unlimited creation? At Heartland Miracles, a school of transformational spirituality that I founded in Indianapolis, we teach that you can tell your story of struggle or pain or hurt or whatever for the very last time and never look back. You can move beyond it. You can forgive it and let it go. Put it down. And do you know, in teaching the formula for telling the story for the last time, I model it. And I give a story of my life. It wasn't really, really bad, but, you know. I'm a former ex-nun, and took 3 vows: poverty, chastity, and obedience, and I only had trouble with the first 3. Where was I was having thoughts or stories. Something incredible, something miraculous, something beyond our imagination happens when we forgive, when we just let it go. A story just popped into my mind that I want to share with you. Several years ago, I founded a non-traditional church in Indianapolis called the Church Within, and pastored it for 9 years. And we worked very heavily with people with HIV and AIDS at that time. And we had an AIDS hospice. One day, one of our beloved brothers was in the hospital, and the hospital called and told us that he had a matter of days or weeks to live. And this blessed young man came from a very small town in Indiana, where it was really not okay to be gay. It was not okay even to part your hair long. It was not okay to have AIDS. And his family was terrified. And they had rejected. And we became his family. And so I said, you know, if it's hours and days, we cannot just sit with him. We have to call that family and let them know. So the family was called and informed, and we went there to the hospital, several of us on his birthday, and walked into his room and were shocked to find his whole family there. And they said to us, "We have come to take Jimmy home." That still gets me. Why did it take, you know, the threat of death to take Jimmy home? But I want you to know, this was so miraculous. Jimmy lived 1 year. What was that about? The story changed. There was forgiveness. Wow. So, here's the story. You'll love this one. My husband loves it. Oh, I bet you haven't heard this in a while, honey. Well, just so happens that one day I got very, very angry at my husband for something that he did or didn't do. I cannot remember. Maybe it was both. And I became so upset that I got in my car, never said a word to him, took off, and went for a long drive. I drove out the country for a whole hour, came back, sat in the park, and had a highly therapeutic pity party. It was just glorious. Poor me. But you know, after about 2 hours, it was a little lonely. And the thought came to me from A Course in Miracles. You know, I really hate that when that happens. That I just want to have a warm and wonderful pity party, and thoughts of the Course in Miracles or a new thought will come through my mind, unity teachings, whatever. And the thought came, I am doing this to myself. You know what I'm talking about. You could never have had that little laugh if you didn't know this was true. I was insisting that he be wrong so I could be right. What was wrong with that? Isn't that what a wife is supposed to do? I was insisting that he somehow be different than what he was just naturally. So I asked forgiveness of myself. I got in the car and I drove home, thinking all the way, Louise, it is your thoughts alone that cause you pain. There's only love for us here. Everything else is a story. My thoughts about my husband were causing me pain. He wasn't doing it to me, I was doing it to myself. Anybody relate? Raise your hand. I was clinging to that old story, and suffering was the consequence, right? Because anything that is not love has a consequence, and it is called suffering. Now here's the really cool thing. When I forgave myself, I was also able to forgive him. Yeehaw! And when I arrived back home, he was still himself. I was still myself, yet my heart was open again. An open heart is essential to transformation, isn't it? Absolutely. Until we are willing, dear ones, to move beyond our old stories of hurt and pain and disappointment and struggle and suffering and shame and blame and anger and fear and so on, those stories will define us. They will define us. They will limit us. They will burden us. And they will keep us prisoner, locked out from our own joy. The ecstasy of spirit that is ours every single second. Until we're willing to see the part that we play in any unsatisfactory relationship, we're going to be disappointed and resentful. The Course teaches that the only thing that can be missing, and I have to tell you, I really hate this one too, the only thing that can be missing in any situation in which I do not have peace is something I am not giving it. Wow. You might want to know that my husband and I met in 1969. I was directing a choir, church choir, happened to be Catholic, and I didn't have a ride home that night. He was there for the very first time, and he held his book like this the whole time. And all I could see were the most gorgeous blue eyes God had ever created. And so at the end of choir practice, when they said, who's taking Louie home, they called me Sergeant Louie. I can't figure out why. But when they said, who's taking Louie home, he said, shyest man in the world, I promise you, he said, I am. And there's a part of me that went, woo-hoo. We met in April, engaged in May, married in June. I know, long, drawn out. He was a widower with 3 children. The funny thing is, when I met his children, I knew they were mine. But Ron's 14 years older than I am, and I thought, he won't want me. I should set him up with my older cousin, and then I could visit the children that are mine. So we were married for 16 years, and then the stories got in the way. So we divorced. We were divorced 7 years. Then we remarried. I was so glad. So when we were moving back in together after those 7 years, I think it was August or something like that. It was very hot and very humid. And all the doors were open and windows and everything. And I remember I just was carrying another box and he looked at me and he said, "Are you scared?" And I said, "Oh, yes." And he said, "I am too. I guess we'll just have to trust the good." New story, right? Trust the good. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of a relationship that is a little troublesome to you. Okay, if you have one of those that's a lot troublesome, you go ahead and hold that one in your mind. Something, that's challenging. Think of someone in your life who challenges you. And I want you to hold in your mind the image of that person. And if you are willing, thinking only of that person or those people, I'm going to ask you to repeat these statements with me and see how you feel. Here we go. I forgive. I forgive my disappointment in me. I forgive my disappointment in me. I forgive my disappointment in you. I forgive my disappointment in you. I forgive myself for not knowing a better way to do this relationship. I forgive myself for not knowing a better way to do this relationship. I forgive you for not knowing either. I forgive you for not knowing either. I let forgiveness rest on us. I let forgiveness rest on us. Dear ones, there's only love for us here. And everything else is the story we're making up and clinging to. Anything other than love is an old story. We are not our past. As a matter of fact, I wrote a little book called Beyond Your Past. I promised I'd only speak for 20 minutes, and I don't know when I started, so if I'm up, somebody has to yell stop. But it's this little book called Beyond Your Past, Healing Yourself Through Self-Forgiveness. And in that little book, I have many examples of how to tell the story for the last time. But I want to read this little excerpt from it. To forgive ourselves means to acknowledge that as human beings, we are a work in progress. Would you agree? Yes. Yes. If you don't agree, you may now ascend. I've met a couple. Goodness. Our lives are in a holy process of decision and design, and each necessary dance of human evolution. Would you agree?
Yes.
Good. So let us, dear ones, affirm together. There's only love for me here. Everything else is a story. I have the power to change my story. Now we're going to do it standing. Because we're going to make this a commitment to our lives, our happiness, our success, our abundance, our prosperity, our health, our wholeness, our holiness. Here we go. There's only love for me here. Everything else is a story. I can change my story. Because I am the holy thoughts of